The thing about the show is, as the scripts arrive, each time I go, oh my God, shit, is that true? And then somebody dies and somebody lives and some weird thing happens and it continually surprises you. That's what's good about the storytelling, but of course that's what's terrible about doing publicity for it. So I'm running away from a situation I got myself in Washington where my daughter died and I kind of fell apart. And so I call Anne, who used to be my student and protege, and she's now running the Jerusalem Bureau, and she calls me out so I can get away from it all. And I am haunted by, driven by, trying to escape the ghost of my daughter, and that drives a lot of the plot. He's stuck, he's kind of paralyzed, actually, and weighed down by these things that happen to him. And he has this odd relationship with Anne, which is not romantic at all.
I was thinking of the mysterious woman.
Oh, the mysterious woman. Well, he's ready for, looking for, maybe, or actually more sideswiped by being snapped out of his kind of paralysis, snapped out of the place he's got himself into by somebody mysterious who doesn't know about his past, and that lights like a pilot light in him that went out. And you would have, wow, lucky this isn't live TV. Yeah, he's not looking to rebuild or start his life. Actually, he finds it hard to move on, and he hasn't. Have you seen the pilot?
Just clips.
Okay, well, so he hasn't unpacked his bags. He's been there for 6 months, and so this is not a guy ready to start a new life. He's not a guy ready to engage with life, and life just grabs him by the balls and drags him into it.
How cold was the water in that cave scene with the red-haired woman?
I got dressed to go home and found my nipples had poked holes in my rather thick Carhartt jacket. Yeah, it was freezing cold. But that's one of the great skills as an actor. You have to be I've done it a couple of times. I had to dive into the North Sea off Scotland and save a body, and all I was trying to do was not die. And similarly, this was a beautiful romantic scene in which we both thought that we would have to lose our fingers and toes when it was over. But what was nice is we'd only just met, but we cuddled each other all night long to try and stay warm in the water because it was freezing. Yeah.
How would you describe that relationship that is between Peter and his former?
It's very interesting, and there's so much to talk about for us when we were doing it, and hopefully people at home, because is it romantic? They're having sex, but it's not exactly romantic. But you can't. I'm not sure that they pull off the trick of just being fuck buddies. Was in the original script. I'm not sure that USA will be broadcasting that version. They're kind of grabbing each other. They're two slightly broken lost souls who grab at each other, but not in a romantic way. But it's impossible for the feelings not to grow, much as they both try hard, and it gets them into trouble. It becomes much more complicated than they imagined it would. They imagine they can have, what's it called? No strings sex.
Friends with benefits?
Friends with benefits, and it doesn't quite work out like that. It becomes much more complicated.
There are multiple storylines going on all over the world that kind of converge together. How much is Peter aware of what's going on, and how long? And what's his?
Well, that's the delicate dance that it's so great to have Tim and Gideon as the kind of puppet masters, because a lot of the joy and frustration and pleasure of this is that kind of thing when you do a puppet show for children and the children are going behind you. There's stuff going on the audience knows about, but I don't know about, and I'm trying to make my way through these strange, confusing, mysterious clues, and the audience think they're ahead of me at some points, and I'm ahead of them at some points, and it's like teasing in a big game fish. He's aware and has an instinct that something is going on that's a lot bigger than what seems to be happening on the ground, but it's very hard for him to persuade anyone else because there's no solid evidence. He's just got a sense from the way people are behaving and the mysterious clues he picks up on, and his own background and his particular instincts, that there's something really dangerous and really sinister happening, but at some points that makes him look like a lunatic and gets him, he seems like a kind of ranting conspiracy theorist. But then, for me as a reader, like the audience, at some points I'm also wondering how serious these other people and how will the strands interact is part of the joy of watching this.
Can you talk about how Peter gets along with Ori's character?
Well, he's an irritating, annoying, loud, obnoxious Israeli detective who gives me no respect. I'm a high-ranking FBI official, and he could give a shit. And he smokes in the car, and he drives like an idiot, and And at every stage, it seems like he's trying to sabotage whatever's going on. He also thinks I'm a lunatic. Detectives, when they say, detectives I've met, if you arrive at the scene and there's a guy standing with a knife, he probably killed the person. And it's almost always the husband or whatever. And I just don't think anything is as it seems. And we gradually find a grudging respect for each other. And it's actually it's a really beautiful, touching friendship. But I don't think either of them would ever either describe it as that or be comfortable with that description. But we finally get to a place where we kind of work together, although it never stops being tense.
Who is his biggest ally to Phil?
Nobody, the audience. That's the joy of watching shows about somebody who's at the, a maverick or someone who's at the centre of what seems like a conspiracy theory is that you as the audience know that he's got to be onto something, and we're all trying to pick the puzzle apart and see how the pieces come back together again with Peter. He's our way into the story, and at various different points people believe some things and sometimes they believe all of it for a moment, but he's up against some pretty formidable enemies and some people who have been rehearsing for what they were going to do for thousands of years, and he's new at the party.
Can you talk about working with producers like Tim Kring and Gideon Raff?
It's pretty amazing, but mostly because I had to get over being a fanboy when I started. I'm a fanboy of Heroes. I love TV. I love good TV, and I was addicted to Heroes and many of the other things that Tim's done. And he had an extraordinary project online recently, which I love. And Gideon and I watched the original Prisoners of War. Anybody who loves Homeland, like me, should do themselves a favour and go back and watch the original Prisoners of War, Khatufim, because it's extraordinary. And he has such an ease with story. Both of them have such confidence, their storytelling ability, that unlike more insecure people, they're completely inclusive. So all of us get to have these discussions about what is this jigsaw and how's it coming together, and they make it very both collaborative, and they're so clearly and firmly on top of the material that it's been a bit of a love fest. I mean, that's always nauseating to read when I read about how people get on with each other, but we got on fantastically well. And the other thing is, of course, we've been bumped from country to country, and various different circumstances have made this a very challenging shoot. And at times like that, you either bond together or you split apart, and we all became a bit of a family. And also, there's something, I don't mean in any way to insult any of the collaborators I've worked with before, but they are just so smart. There's not many people can hold together all these different story elements and the tiny turns, and you ask a question at some point, or you're questioning something, and they go, well, in episode 9 when he says this, it means this. In episode 4 when she's wearing this bracelet, it means this. And they have the whole thing in their head all the time, and that's very reassuring.
Well, Ori had very flattering.
Also, Gideon is funny as shit. So he has a microphone on set, and we're both making a TV series that hopefully the public will enjoy, and enjoying his stand-up routine that's gone on for 6 months now.
Well, again, your coworker Ori had really flattering things to share about you. What would you say was fun working with him on this?
Nothing. He's a dick. Really, basically his character. No.
And he lets you babysit his kids.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we all, like I said, we've been in all these different places, and we've all been phoning each other going, what are we doing now, and where are we shooting, how are we going to make this work? And also we've done some very physically arduous things. Ori and I have been in some situations where we've gone home bruised, and I could barely swallow for a week when he was choking me. I think we broke somebody's rib, and I've got fabulous slow-mo footage of him getting fully punched in the face when it was obviously meant to miss by 2 foot. And so we've had a lot of physical experiences together in some very hot places, some very cold places, and running through rocks and stuff. And so we both of us think we're 10, and we like to have fun. He's very macho, Ori. He's very fit, very strong. He was in an Argentinian almost circus theatre troupe that I used to go and watch all the time. And when he told me that, I was blown away, because I thought they were all professional circus people, and so we're constantly trying to outdo each other. So there'll be moments when really stuntmen should be doing what we're doing. We'll go, I'll do it, and I go, I'll do it. No, I'll do it. And we like it. And also he's got, right from the beginning there was a sense of family on the show. We were shooting in places where Gideon grew up, so literally his family were there, and Ori was born there and grew up there too. And his wife and kids arrived, and my wife and kids sadly are a long way away, and so he allowed me to adopt them. Well, they adopted me, and so it's often fun I found it often to be true that the people with whom you have the most tension on screen are the people you get on best with. So I did Brotherhood, and my sworn enemy in Brotherhood was Kevin Chapman, who played Freddie Cork, and he was my closest friend on the shoot by far, and that's true here at all.
Assuming Peter survives the first season, would you be interested in doing a Dig season 2?
There's such hubris involved in making television shows when people start. I was doing a pilot last year, and the showrunner said to me, let's talk about season 5, what we want to get to. And I said, let's talk about the next scene in the pilot show. This is a great story. It's got a beginning, middle, and a hell of an end. I mean, an epic end. And I'm just trying to think about how I'm not going to die when we shoot it, and whether I should actually, just for one, step back and let a stuntman do some of the stuff I read yesterday. And I'm not thinking about that. Would I work with these people again? In a heartbeat. Yeah.
Heroes are born?
Sorry?
Heroes are born?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, this is not conceived of as a, it's not CSI. The idea is not that it runs for years and years. They came up with a great story. If we make it well and the audience find it and they like it and they call me and go, do you want to do it again? They won't get to the end of the phone call. Yeah.
What has been the craziest stunt you've had to do, or you're going to have to do?
Well, the cold is something. Well, this is set right now at maybe one of the hottest spots on the planet, one of the most controversial pieces of land, tiny piece of real estate, and you only need to open any newspaper any day now to see how much in the zeitgeist they were when they came up with this story, and how art is imitating life or the other way around. And so our show is set in the blazing heat of a Jerusalem summer, and there are times when I can't actually move my lips for icicles, and so the cold is pretty tough. And then also running and jumping and falling and shooting and getting shot, and there's a lot of rocks. We're shooting in real locations often, so there were some what seemed to me very dangerous locations physically, where there were the rocks and rock pools and tunnels, and I'm sprinting full pelt through them, and I can't really see what's going on. And when you're on some of the bigger productions, they build those things out of foam, and there's no foam in the tunnels under Jerusalem.
What's your character's relationship with Alison Sudol's character?
Well, that's where we get into stuff that I can't wait to discuss when the show's already been broadcast. She appears and pulls the rug right out from under me. You'll see in the trailer she has bright red hair and stuff, and there is a reason why that stops me in my tracks. And it's a very complicated, not complicated, it's a very intriguing relationship, and it seems romantic. Obviously, I'm older than her, you may have noticed, I don't know. So that's confusing for me and wrong, and yet forbidden fruit, and she seems to be, I'm not quite sure what she wants out of me, and it takes many, many twists and turns in the times that you see it on screen, and then there's a history to it. There are layers and secrets and surprises that are continually revealed. Alice and I called each other last week. It's almost speechless with some of the things that we just read. So it's unfortunately, she is at the heart of the mystery.
She's not the red heifer.
No. But she kickstarts the whole thing, and nothing is ever what it seems.
Can you talk about
So I'm sorry that's so
That's good.
elliptical.
Yeah.
That's good enough for.
But I'll tell you what she is I thought, I did that thing that actors do of going, who are these people I'm about to work with? That's just who is she? I looked her up, and she's obviously a very, very popular and successful and rather brilliant singer-songwriter, and hadn't done a lot of acting. And I thought, I wonder what that's going to be like acting with her. And it's just irritating, frankly, that people who haven't trained and done for years can arrive on screen and just mesmerise everybody. You can't take your eyes off her on screen.
Can you talk about things like the red heifer that are being explored in this series?
Yeah, I can. So I read the script, first of all, and I thought, thank God there's something I can talk about. I read the script and I thought, oh, what a fantastic, strange weave of extraordinary mythology they've invented. So, because I'm not religious or particularly schooled in any of the religions, so I went to see them and I said, I'd love to do this, it's great. Where'd you get the stories from? And they went, well, they're all true. No, which bits of Jerusalem exists, obviously, but I mean, this stuff about the cow, for instance, they went, no, the cow is the most true thing. And then some of the other groups in this that you would think they have invented, there are some very powerful, very well-funded, very dangerous groups in the world that are looking to bring about the end of civilization as we know, and they are working towards it every day. And many of the things you see in the newspaper that seem unconnected are not connected. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. You don't need to do much research to find out that it's true. But the red heifer I'd never heard of, and I was shooting Rosemary's Baby in Paris earlier this year, and the taxi driver recognised me. I speak pidgin French, and he goes, "What are you shooting?" in French, and I go, "I'm shooting a thing set in." "What are you doing next?" I said, "I'm doing this thing set in Jerusalem. It's kind of about the end of the world in a way and stuff like that." He said, "Does it have the red heifer in it?" And I thought, "Wait, this is a plant. How the fuck does he know?" And it turns out that it's something that a lot of people in the world know all about the red heifer, and there is a continual search for the red heifer. And while we were shooting, a red heifer was born. And I thought, will we get to the end of the series before the apocalypse? But apparently it wasn't completely. There was like one hair that wasn't red. But nowadays you can, the communication lines are a lot more open, and when one is born, I fear for us all. But frankly, I fear for us all, having done the show, and having then researched and found out how many of these groups really exist and how much money they have and how many positions of authority some of the more extreme lunatics are in, I hope there are people like Peter around, as determined and as damaged and as diligent, who are heading them off at the pass, because otherwise it's all over.
Yeah, because it's all completely different. There's, from the murder mystery, it goes off.
I start picking at it, and it just doesn't seem to be a simple murder mystery, and it isn't, and it seems to me that there is something much bigger and much more sinister and much more dangerous and global going on, and so it proves to be, but it's very hard for me to find any evidence of it. It's very hard for me to persuade anyone else to believe it also. I mean, I've been slightly warned off, as you know, talking about the mysterious turns in the story, because that's the fun for the audience. Also, without anyone warning me, I'm slightly nervous about angering some of the groups that I know exist and are sitting in elected office in this country, who have an agenda that most of us would think of as insane, and they think of as dictated from the heavens.
If you ever had an opportunity as the actor to sit down across the table from your character, what kind of advice would you give him about this situation?
Oh, just keep your gun loaded, and try to sleep with fewer people. Wear a condom.
Yeah, we were in that room, that set of the hotel room.
Right.
And I was looking, and I was like, "There's no condoms here." I see no condoms anywhere here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would, if I was lucky enough to see the bigger picture, I'd tell him where to look, but one of the nice things about this, traditionally detective shows, which this isn't, you discover all of the evidence with the protagonist. So with them, you find out, surprising things. One of the very interesting and very skilled things that Tim and Gideon have done is something different, which is the audience know a bunch of stuff that I don't know. So there's that tremendous tension and frustration. When's he going to find out? Don't look that way, look this way. Don't trust that guy. No, she's being honest. And that's one of the elemental, that's one of the classical elements of storytelling that you often miss in detective stories.
Was there a particular location in Jerusalem that was really special for you to shoot in?
The whole place is mind-boggling. I mean, whether you do or don't believe in any kind of God, monotheistic or not, the place is just humming with history and the blood of the many, many, many civilizations that have sacrificed all to conquer this tiny piece of land. And our show is not even about a tiny piece of land, it's about a tiny, a hill and the Temple Mount, which I hadn't really thought or heard about till we started the show. And then if you open the newspaper now, it's the tinderbox for the entire planet. And it's right now, even as we speak now, it's smouldering. So all of it. But to be shooting anywhere in Jerusalem, on the roofs, when the sun comes up and the light glints off that famous golden dome, or to be in at some point we were in a tunnel, and I said, "What's this on the wall? There's kind of black stuff on the walls." And we had historians and custodians with us, people who we were in places that you're not meant to touch too many things sometimes with shooting. And he said, "Well, that's when there was the rebellion thousands of years ago, and the Jews were being hunted down and fighting the Romans up top. They hid their women and children down here, and the Romans found out. They poured oil down and burnt them all alive, and that's the charcoal on the wall from where they burnt. It's still there. So it's all there to the touch. It doesn't feel. You don't have to use your imagination too hard to feel the power of this place, and that's what drives the story. That's what's driven this kind of bloodlust or religious extremism for thousands of years.